Okay, welcome everybody. We're really excited to have you here. My name is James Riviezzo, and I'm with Hani Gluck from 4D Global. And today's topic I'm really excited about because we're going to help you break down the challenges that many of you may be right in the middle of. And ultimately, we're going to show you, Hani's going to share with you the process that she has found over the course of her career running a successful medical billing company, how to build the structure that works to scale your medical billing company. Now, everybody has specific issues. And so we're going to cover those today. And so what you're going to learn is you're going to learn how to build an internal team that maximizes productivity and really serves your clients best. So Hani has been in the medical billing industry for over 20 years. She started and scaled a successful medical billing company based out of the East Coast and now works here in Arizona to help other medical billing companies solve their challenges with fast growth. So I'd like to introduce Hani today for our teaching, for our training.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm excited to get started.
So Hani, tell us why this matters for medical billing companies.
I found that, speaking from my own experience, starting a billing company, you just kind of do your organizational structure, hire people based on the clients you get, and then you start running into issues and problems. And I've seen very large billing companies, and I've seen the structure that they had, and there's the mid-sized companies. So we're going to talk about all of that today, really understanding how to add staff, in what way, in which departments, and how to really maximize your revenue by having a solid organizational structure that works within your framework.
Awesome. I love it. So real quick for everybody who's tuning in, and I'm looking down here and seeing we're getting, a few dozen people that are jumping on now. So we're going to keep the chat closed, but if anybody has any questions throughout the training, make sure you jot that down and ask us, because we will answer them for you. And you should see that on the right-hand side of your screen, right there in the bottom. You'll see a little field which will allow you to ask those questions. Go ahead and do that, and we're going to get those. So today, again, we're here with Hani Gluck from 4D Global, and she's about to guide us through a process that she's developed over years of experience working with medical billing companies. And so Hani, you just explained to us that the struggle that a lot of small to mid-sized medical billing companies go through. Can you give us some specific examples of what those struggles are?
So you would have an account manager who's running a client A to Z, and maybe they're running one client or two clients or three clients, and they're doing all the different aspects of that account, from charge posting, payment posting, and we'll get into all the tasks that account manager is doing. They become overwhelmed. They feel like they can't do a good job. They get upset because they feel like they're not producing what they should be producing, and then they come to you complaining that they're not getting to work their AAR, they're not getting to work certain things that are part of their job description, and there's just an overall frustration on the employee side and then on the employer side as well. So we're going to figure out how to give that person the help they need and work alongside with that account manager to keep them on their core competency and what they excel at.
Awesome. So then, Hani, how do you think it affects the client relationship when we have account managers that are handling too much?
So obviously the clients see it. They hear the frustration when they call, and the account manager cannot properly answer the questions that they're being asked. So the clients are seeing it in, obviously their revenue. If their revenue is not where it's supposed to be at, they're wondering what's going on. And many times it's just a stressed out account manager that just cannot get to everything. But of course, the client's expectation is that account manager knows what's happening on every single one of their claims.
Mm.
And when they find out that they don't, that's when the frustration sets in.
Okay. So, honey, for the structure that you're going to show us, what type of company would you say this is ideal for?
So we're going to talk about all different sizes. We're going to talk about the 1 to 5 employees, the 5 to 35 employees. We're going to talk about the over 35, over 50 employees. So we have something for everyone on this training session.
Okay, awesome. And then going back to kind of your experience with each of those categories or each of those subgroups, what would you say are a few of the inherent challenges or the unique challenges that each of those subgroups kind of experience?
So I would say on the smaller side, when the company is smaller, obviously one person is wearing multiple hats. As you continue to grow, you're able to spread that out a little bit. And so obviously, the smallest billing company has the most challenges because they need to find people that have the most diversity.
Yeah.
As you continue to get bigger, you can hone in on exactly what task you need that person to do and get somebody that excels at that particular task.
Okay.
And so it kind of gets easier as you get bigger, but also it takes work on the HR person, the hiring manager, to find the right person and create a job description that fits exactly what that role entails. And we're going to define those roles in the session as well.
Okay. What about for mid-sized billing companies, mid to larger size?
I think mid-sized companies encounter issues where they're always a little bit stuck because they feel that they want to overstaff to take on new business, but at the same time, they're dealing with their own cash flow issues. So how much money do I have to hire the amount of people I need to hire to have a little bit of room to take on more business?
Okay.
So I think that's generally a mid-sized company issue, and a larger company would experience the need for usually an HR manager, because you have a lot of people, with people come people's personality and issues. So having that dedicated HR person, having a full-time marketing person, so the different roles that are created as the company continues to expand, and just for the CEO to learn how to manage all those different people, personality, and everybody's different skill sets.
Okay, nice. And I know one of the things that we had talked about along those lines is the difference between a company that has a mindset that's reactive versus a company that's proactive. So a company that's reactive, you had said, has, challenges specifically to bringing on new clients. Do you want to talk about that? Like what, kind of how it actually keeps those companies from going out and finding new work and growing their business?
That's a great question, James. I would say that I see a lot of billing companies getting very comfortable with their current client base because they feel reassured by the reoccurring revenue that consistently comes in from a particular client. And so they get comfortable with that because it is pretty consistent, but really not planning for a client being approached by a hospital and the hospital acquiring the client, they lost the client, or an ACO, for example. Different situations that come up, or just a provider selling his practice. So that there are these situations that come up, and when they come up, they happen pretty quickly, as most clients do not let their billing service know that they're in talks with hospitals or potential buyers. And so very quickly, they can go from having a bunch of people working the account to then, oh my gosh, I lost this client. Now I have all these people. Do I have to fire all these people? Do I quickly try to get new business? So I think that it's always good for a business owner to have a pipeline of prospects and to continue to to be able to add business in a measured way. Because obviously you have to be honest with yourself about how many clients you could actually take on in a given month, right? So just being realistic about that, because you don't want your staff quitting on you saying, oh my gosh, you brought on too much on us now and we can't handle it. So just having an approach to scaling in a more calculated way. I mean, I know one of my clients will tell their prospects, I can take on your business, but it's going to happen in 60 days. And so they give themselves time to prep for the oncoming business. And many clients are fine with that.
I like it. So again, I think I'm hearing two really important things here. So the first part is really not getting lulled into a sense of false security, because business changes quickly, and it could be devastating to your existing business if you're not prepared to lose a client. And I was thinking that's kind of similar to when we recommend that practices have a balanced payer mix, right? So that they have a problem with one payer, it doesn't impact their revenue. So again, you're recommending that these companies look in the same way, that they don't have one client that they're relying too heavily on and not being prepared to bring on another client. Awesome. The second part I'm hearing is that in order to be agile enough to grow, and even to grow with your existing clients as they grow, then you should really look at that as a key motivating factor to also have a type of scalable structure in place.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. All right, good. So again, we're here with Hani Gluck from 4D Global, and today's training workshop is about how to build the right internal team structure to scale your medical billing company. And so far we've identified the main challenges that small, medium, and even large companies go through when they have an internal process and team that's reactive. And we've also talked about how it affects clients and preparing to bring on new clients, or even being lulled into a false security, which is not good for your business for existing clients. Okay, I love it. So this is going to be super valuable. So I'm going to ask Hani to let us just jump in here. So we're going to start off with the first slide, and Hani's going to explain to us what we commonly see and what the challenges are with that structure, with that reactive process. So let's jump in.
Okay. So our first situation is, this is how most people start their business. They have the owner, the CEO, and then they get a couple of accounts. They hire account manager one. Account manager one is doing everything related to that account. You get some more accounts, you add another account manager, and so on. That person is doing everything from payment posting, charge posting, patient statements, patient calls, client communications, adjustments, AR appeals, just everything associated with that account. Now, the CEO will start to notice that this account manager may be dropping the ball, may not be getting to everything that all their tasks they're supposed to do. Usually the AR is suffering because the account manager knows she's got to key those claims, she's got to submit those claims in order for money to come in. She knows that those are the two most important things she's got to get done. Everything else, she'll always have time for. So that kind of goes in the back burner.
Interesting.
Patient calls are usually replied to because they know that if a patient doesn't get a call back, that patient's calling the doctor, the client, and the client's going to be really upset. So I would say that they prioritize the things that they know are the most important things that they have to do to keep the revenue machine going. And so what I find is that denials and AR work, for some reason, and it makes sense, right, because it's not urgent, but it is urgent because there are timely filing limits and there are issues, but to that account manager, that's not important to her as much as all the other tasks I just mentioned. So the CEO will notice this, and they'll say, hey, I noticed that, you're behind on your AR. So they may hire an AR specialist to kind of help out that account manager. Or if that account manager is behind in her data entry and she's not posting her payments fast enough, month end is closing, the CEO wants to invoice the client, but this account manager is a week behind in her payment posting. Now, every CEO wants to get paid. If my payments aren't posted, I can't get out my invoice.
Right.
So now this is a hindrance. You're stopping my ability to invoice my clients. So maybe I'll get a data entry specialist because I got to have those payments posted, especially when month end hits and I know my invoices are coming. She could be a few weeks behind, so I got to get someone to help me, and I'll hire a data entry specialist to help her out.
Mm.
And then maybe, all the calls are, this account manager is so busy that she's just letting all these patient calls just go to voicemail. And she's like a few days behind in returning her voicemails, and obviously patients are complaining to the clients, and so she gets a patient client service rep to help out. And that's kind of what we see on the slide here.
Yeah.
The pieces, like the band-aids to these problems are kind of being filled in. But this can go on for a while. I've seen companies run like this for years and years and years. And they just kind of make it work. The clients may not be happy. Generally, they're complaining. The CEO is pretty stressed out because the CEO's got some HR issues because these account managers, they're not happy. Nobody likes to have a ton of work pushed on them and then not to be able to produce. Every employee wants to know that they can meet their job description. They can fulfill their duties as an employee. And when they feel like they are failing, that's usually when they quit. And so when I hear companies that have a high turnover, in my mind, I'm kind of thinking, I wonder if that employee was a little overwhelmed.
Interesting.
I wonder if she just kind of felt like, oh my gosh, I just could not keep up with this.
Interesting.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, and this is great because from the practice side, having worked with so many practices and helping them select billing companies, and even go through the process of whether or not to outsource their billing or even keep it in house, this really is enlightening in showing kind of that main stress point between maintaining a good relationship with with the client and your ability to really serve them in the way that they expect. And the common complaints that I hear from these practices are lack of transparency with their billing company, not following up on claims, and then them thinking that the billing company just thinks they're not important enough to chase small balances. And then finally, that they're not doing anything proactive to help the client to actually, especially now, do better with their reimbursements, understand that there's strategies behind their failing revenue cycle. And really that so many practices are looking towards these companies to give them that guidance. And if you have an account manager who is wearing so many different hats, that I can now understand why that's almost impossible to do, almost impossible to accomplish. So one quick question I had for you too. So let's say I'm the CEO of a billing company, and I've just gotten my first big client or a few new clients, few new practices. How do I go about recruiting for the right type of person in this scenario where they have to have so many different skill sets?
Okay, so that becomes a bit of a challenge if we're looking for someone that has all these skill sets. And that's why when we get to the proactive model, we'll go through and I'll show you how if you had a data entry person that was really good at data entry and just did the data entry, if you had an AR person that just focused on AR, then you pick an account manager person that is great at communication and is a people person and could develop a good rapport with a client can have client meetings where you feel comfortable sending this person to the client's office, which is a completely different personality than a data entry person. The typical data entry person is usually pretty introverted, maybe a little socially awkward, likes to sit and have their headphones on and really just focus on one task, and really not a very social, extroverted person, versus an AR person who has to be argumentative and really negotiate, have like really good negotiating skills and not take no for an answer. That's the personality of an AR person. So if you try to get them into one account manager, what I just described, the data entry person and the AR person are polar opposites in personality.
Yeah, absolutely. What a great point.
And even the patient communication person, many data entry people don't want to talk to anybody. That's why they want to do data entry. So trying to really, in the interview process, evaluate someone's personality first, because you can't train a personality. If someone's got a personality, either they're social, they're outgoing, or they're quiet, they're introverted, and both are great, but you have to really find the right person for the right skills you're looking for.
All right, that makes sense. That makes sense. So for that CEO, trying to find someone with all of those different skill sets, like what specifically are they looking for, or what specifically are all of the functions that account manager has to perform?
Okay, so the account manager is doing charge posting, payment reconciliation, submitting claims, dealing with the insurance companies on AR appeals, denials, working with the patients on generating statements and then answering calls for the statements, client communications, reporting, month-end invoicing. These are all the different tasks that account manager is doing. But from a personality perspective, a data entry person is a focused, introverted person that just wants to listen to their music and post payments, versus a AR person who's a lot more outgoing and argumentative. And so you're trying to find a person to do all these jobs, but they're just different personality traits that you're trying to find in one person. So once you figure out the person that's going to do your data entry and the person that's going to do the AR, your account manager personality you should be looking for is someone that has very strong communication skills and is able to communicate effectively with the clients and with the people in the client's office, the patients. That's really a good job description for an account manager.
How would you break this down in terms of high level versus low level tasks?
Okay, good question. So you've got your charge posting, EOB posting, ERA posting, payment reconciliation. That is completely a data entry, low level functioning position where anyone could do that. And we obviously, do that data entry. I think data entry should happen after business hours. I don't think anyone should spend time doing any kind of data entry between 9 and 5. So I like to see data entry being done in the evening time. And I want to see phone call, everyone on the phone, appealing claims, talking to reps, getting claims paid during 9 to 5. So you've got your appeals, denials. I think that, our team in India does a great job in doing AR, calling on claims, statusing them, and even working them from A to Z. Like they can call on a claim, find out it's not on file, resubmit it, and then that's it. Fine. If it doesn't get paid, we'll check on it again in 30 days. So that to me is still, AR is still a low level job that really could be taught and done by anyone with proper policy and procedures. I think submitting claims should probably, is a low level job, but is a serious job because that's where your revenue is. You don't want anyone screwing that up. So you could have one person that submits claims all day. Some softwares will submit claims automatically. I see denials as a low level function. patient statements should be generated sometimes daily. For many companies do that, and that should be an automated process. Sometimes you have somebody reviewing the statements for accuracy and deleting the ones that shouldn't go out. Answering calls is something that should be done by a U.S. person who can answer the questions, speak intelligently. In many cases, this is something that could even be automated with a phone service that will just do a call on all patient statements, people that got 2 or more statements, and the option to pay by phone. So that can sometimes just be eliminated by technology. And the client communication, I think, is higher level. Yeah, some reporting is higher level, and month-end invoicing should be done by whoever is working on the data entry should be able to reconcile all the payments they posted, and that should match what you received and the report should match to the system report.
Okay, so next here, you kind of outlined what the main problems. We've talked a lot about the specific problems for different billing company sizes, how they get into these challenges to begin with, and that there kind of are, I'm hearing 4 main problems being that of course there's a customer service component and this idea of how they get overwhelmed, but how does it impact their actual ability to add to revenue here?
Okay, so what I described about the account manager being overwhelmed, and they're definitely leaving money on the table because they don't have time to really work the AR the way it should be. Then you have increased days on the AR, which decreases your percentage of collections. The longer that claims are left on the books, the lower the chances that you're going to collect it. You have the highest probability of collecting something that's 0 to 45, 60 days old. And once it hits over 60, over 90, it dramatically decreases, right? Because then you're running in, there's some insurance companies with 45-day filing limits. So you're really, at this point where our healthcare is now, have to very proactively work the AR quickly. And obviously, what we described about the account manager getting easily overwhelmed, and there's a strained relationship with a client because the client is expecting, when we sold to the client and the CEO had a meeting with the client and said, made all these wonderful promises about what they're going to do for the client. And then we're in this, relationship, we're in this marriage together. And now my expectations are not being met. And now I want to know why.
Right.
And then the CEO has to go and try to fix it or figure it out.
Okay.
It should never happen that the client should bring any kind of issues to the table. We should be running companies that clients are always thrilled and happy. We should be proactively servicing our clients and not reactively servicing them.
All right. Well, I'm excited. I think, I understand now definitely how overwhelming an account manager is, just poses that not just the challenge to their ability to get their job done, to meet their goals. It strains relationships with the clients themselves. It actually leaves money on the table for the clients and the company. So I'm really seeing how this structure, this reactive structure, really causes, issues, on a number of different categories for business success. So you're going to tell us what you recommend instead of this.
Yes.
Okay. So let's
take me to the next slide.
All right.
Okay. So this is your ideal structure because you've got your CEO, you have your account manager who is now focused on communicating with the CEO and communicating with the coding team, the data entry team, the AR team, and then that account manager will also coordinate with the client. And so you have everyone focused on their core competency.
Nice. So Hani, now how does this affect the specific role of the account manager, and how does that make them more effective?
Okay, so now the account manager can coordinate with each team lead on their respective issues. They can reconcile reports for accuracy on the payment posting side, on the data entry side. They could just review the report that they get from their data team and make sure that it looks okay, even though most of the time the data team will have their own quality control. So this is an extra level of quality control, quality assurance. They would do the higher level appeals, the things that need to be done in their office, like appealing claims of medical necessity, proof of timely filing, which usually has to be mailed. They are doing much more of the client communication piece. They run their reports the client asks for. They're proactively talking to the client about value-based performance, things coming up, MIPS and MACRA. They can advise on the best coding practices. They really can get familiar with the account, the specialty. They could even read, specific trade journals. Let's say, for example, it's a dermatology account, and there are different issues that come up in a dermatology coding practice. If that account manager is handling 5 different dermatology practices, she now is a dermatology expert because she's got all these derm clients. She knows the things that come up because it's happening for one client. If there's a coding issue, there'll be a coding issue for all her clients. So now she's becoming a lot more efficient in the way she can work and communicate, because now she could probably communicate the same thing to a number of different clients. She could also do an email if she's looking at Medicare news briefs and all the different publications that come out from all the different insurance companies. She now has the ability to review it and pass on that information to the client. So she is in a proactive role instead of a reactive role. And that's where the value is, I think, in having this model.
Okay, I love it. So I'm seeing that how the account manager now becomes much more valuable asset for the client in particular, because they're able to really, really be in that position of being a partner, especially for that specialty. So I'm hearing that. So that's great. One question I wanted to ask. So when we're looking at this new structure for the account manager, how does that affect how would you say it affects the bottom line? How does it now contribute to the company's overall bottom line?
Okay, so first of all, as far as financial bottom line, this account manager, the whole world is not going to end if an account manager leaves, because the data entry is still happening, the AR is still happening, and so it's not as traumatic if that person were to leave the organization. From a cost perspective, you've got your data entry team, which is getting paid significantly less than the account manager. Your AR recovery specialists are also compensated on a much lower level. And so you're compensating the account manager a little bit more than the rest of the team below her, yet she is doing something that is really impacting your revenue as the CEO.
What's the added value that the account manager is able to provide in this new role?
Okay, so in this situation, the account manager could handle way more accounts than she was able to handle before. And she could also specialize on, usually most account managers handle one specific specialty. So she's becoming very knowledgeable about that specialty. That's why she could handle so many more accounts. Where in the past, maybe she could handle 1 or 2. Now she could handle 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 accounts, because she's really just primarily responsible for the client communication piece and those team leader interaction.
Okay. Wow. And then she probably really becomes an expert in handling the intricacies of why, kickbacks, what codes are coming back for what denials and how to handle those and really help actually improve the reimbursement rates.
Correct. And you could also tell your clients or your prospective clients, I have people on my team that we have this knowledge base, because doctors love to hear that you have other doctors of the same specialty.
Okay, good.
That gives them great comfort. And so being able to prove to them, we have another client with a similar situation, that definitely adds to the value of what you're bringing to the table. So,
okay. Yeah. And in a way, going back to one of the challenges we described at the beginning of not being, making sure we don't get too reliant on too few practices. If you're honing in on a specialty, I imagine that gives you a higher level of comfort to know that you can go out and find another practice of that same specialty with more confidence.
Right. But not only that, doctors love to talk to each other and share with each other. So your clients will sell your company just knowing that you specialize in that particular specialty. One thing I do want to add, James, which we did not talk about, is in this situation, in the situation that you had an account manager doing everything, that account manager can very easily leave you and you're really stuck in a bad situation.
Right.
They also have the ability to take your client away from you because they're working with that account A to Z. In this model, you're not vulnerable to that because there's no way this account manager could take the client away and do all these things. They're not even trained to do all these things. So it would be much harder for that account manager to walk away or leave with any one of your clients.
So here, you described this support team where everybody's working to their core competency, but how does a company understand that here we're looking at replacing or adding in a staff of, ultimately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 individuals to support that one account manager?
Okay, so obviously this is probably not 14 people, number one.
Okay.
It could be, but doesn't have to be.
Okay.
It really just depends on the size. When you're using an offshore vendor, you're not paying for any of these team leaders, right? You're just paying for your actual agents. So if you have one coder, you're paying for one coder. But you can have a coder that's doing the work of 10 of your accounts, right?
Okay.
So we're looking where the account manager before was only able to manage 1 or 2 accounts. We're looking at a coder that can do many more accounts. We're looking at a data team that can also do the data entry of not just 1 or 2 accounts, but 10, 15, depending on the size and the volume, right? You can, and the same with the AR.
Okay.
So you're now looking at it as more of a functional model versus the client model.
Absolutely.
You could think of it in different terms.
So inside this functional model, would you recommend, so I heard you say that kind of an offshore team is ideal. Would you recommend a company follow the same model if they wanted to build this with just strictly a US-based team? What would be the differences?
Yeah, I would do it the exact same way. They can do this in-house. Always good to have functions. It's been proven that people have increased productivity when doing repetitive tasks. So when you're jumping from task to task, your productivity decreases significantly. You're focused on the same thing all day, your productivity increases. Now, the challenge is, I think, in the U.S., is to find competent, responsible, reliable employees that want to sit and do data entry, because you'll see that there's a lot of turnover. It's a low-paying job. We're looking at like $12 an hour in the U.S., and most people really don't want to get out of bed in the morning for that type of salary. So I find that it's a hard position to fill in the U.S., but definitely doable. On the AR team, I would do the same thing. Have people work the AR, but again, they have to be motivated and trained to become AR specialists and really understand how to collect, and that takes a certain level of training as well.
Okay, interesting. So you were able to implement this in your own medical billing company with a team in New York, and then you were able to also implement it with a team that was overseas. Of course, now what your whole mission is kind of is really showing how the overseas model is the best model. What did you learn are the different differentiation between the two that made you really lean towards going with an offshore model as the ideal model?
I was having a hard time finding people that wanted to do this work and were doing it well. I had a free trial of a company that offered to do this for me in India, and I thought it was the best thing ever, just because of the fact that I created a 24-hour service.
Okay.
So I think just forget the cost savings, because that's a given, but you suddenly went from an 8-hour company to a 24-hour company because you leave the office and you have another team coming in and doing all this work. So it increases reimbursement. Clients are happier. They're getting paid faster, and a lot less HR management, because that's something that always stressed me out as a business owner. Always wanting to make sure everybody's happy, people having very high salary expectations and feeling like I couldn't afford to do that. And so when I started offshoring, these people, these guys in India were just so grateful to have these jobs. Everything was yes, yes, yes. There was no pushback. And they were really so excited to do the work, versus when I was trying to do it in New York, I would get eye rolling and attitudes, and it was exhausting.
Interesting.
So this definitely changed my life.
Interesting. Okay, great. So I'm definitely hearing you say how you could develop this as a US based structure, but you're not going to get the same level of service. Definitely, it sounds like, with the ability to have that 24-hour team, and even though it might work, you're going to miss out on the potential to leverage this to really scale.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, great. So for a company who is kind of understanding that they may have been kind of reactive, and they're seeing how this could work for them, and let's say they are a mid-sized company, I guess the next question is really like, how do they plan? Will this work for future growth also? Like, how long is this their end-all be-all structure?
So I've seen many organizations that have 30, 40, 50 employees that continue with the same structure, and it works for them. But at a certain point, we want to switch to phase 2. Once you get to over 35, over 50, we're going to see a little bit of a shift, because keep in mind, as a CEO, you're doing so many different things still.
Yeah.
You're dealing with marketing, you're dealing with managing all these account managers, you're dealing with your vendors, your clients, your family, right? You have like a bunch of things you're dealing with. And so another layer of management has to start to form between the CEO and the account managers. And so that's where we can talk about the pod model, or the proactive and scalable internal billing company organization phase 2 pod model. So this is pretty similar to what we talked about before. The only difference here is that you have your pod leader, and so it creates another layer and you have your data entry coordinator who's coordinating with the coding team. You have your patient communication and billing person who's coordinating with the data entry team. And then you have your AR insurance verification coder that's interacting with your AR team lead. And then your AR team lead is obviously handling the whole client service recovery group of people that are calling on claims. But what's interesting about this is that the pod leader is basically managing the three levels, the data entry coordinator, patient communication, AR. They all report to the pod leader. The pod leader is communicating with the client. And so the pod leader is not really doing a lot of the work. They're really giving the client a much higher level of service.
Okay.
So communicating different trends, highlighting different issues, and also managing the team beneath them and reporting to the CEO.
Mm.
So this model, I've seen this in a company that had about 65 employees and growing, and it was working really, really well.
Okay.
So the pod leader personality was just a very high-level manager person who was really a strong people person, strong numbers management person. And I like this model a lot for companies that are
Yeah, I mean, this is
continuing
so
to grow.
clearly this is for companies that are taking on, like you had said, hospital systems that are taking on large networks, and so for the kind of this. So when you say a pod leader, so you kind of duplicate this structure as you even grow from there, correct? Let's say you have 30 clients, 40 clients, 50 locations. Let's say you've got multi-specialty groups. How would you handle that? Does it scale inside of this, or do you duplicate each pod each time?
So I would say that every pod should have its own specialty or a number of specialties, but not to exceed. Obviously, could have some multi-specialty groups in there, but I like to see the pods by specialty specifically, because most billing companies, many young billing companies will take on lots of different specialties. But as you continue to grow, you realize that you have a better chance of growing quicker if you specialize in just a few specialties.
Okay.
And so at this phase, the CEO has figured out, we should just pick 2 to 3 specialties that we really focus on and we do great at. And so that's how the pods are created, by just those few specialties.
Okay.
But for those companies that have 10 different specialties, they may have 10 different pods and have, 200 employees. So it really just depends. It's a very individual, case-by-case basis.
Okay. Excellent. So great. I mean, so I understand how we went from kind of a reactive model that most billing companies go through when they start off, and then at some point they're faced with the challenges that kind of stop them from growing. And you've recommended, a proactive model and almost like a 1.0 and a 2.0 version, depending on their growth. So what would you say are the trigger points that make it imperative for the billing companies that are still kind of existing in the reactive model and the account manager heavy model to actually make a change? Like, what are some of the stress points where you would recommend that they take immediate action?
Well, obviously, if their clients are complaining, that's stress number one. Another stress would be an HR stress. Anyone that's telling me that they have HR problems, I would say that's a definite reason for why you may have HR issues. You can have just unreliable employees. When you have employees that just don't show up or just don't take their job seriously, then you're also in a bind in that model, because what are you telling your clients? Your employee didn't show up for 3 days, and their cash, they can't, your client can't pay their mortgage because you have an employee that didn't show up. Versus, our phase one model, you got that covered. Rain or shine, there's a snowstorm, there's a fire, doesn't matter. Your data entry is going to get done by the data team.
Okay.
Your AR will happen. So this is kind of a peace of mind approach, not to have to really put so much weight on one individual, but to spread that responsibility out to make you less vulnerable to whatever could happen to that account manager at any given time.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so what does it take? What does it take then to make that transition? What are the steps involved? How long does it take?
It's actually pretty quick. So as soon as you decide you want to do this, you find an offshore vendor that you have a rapport with, someone you trust, and usually you'll have some kind of free trial. You can try it for a few days, see how it works out, and usually you'll know pretty soon if it's going to work for you.
Okay, great.
You give them instructions. I would say document. If you're thinking about doing this, create a document with any client-specific issues, both on data entry and AR, because that's really what you need. You also need to make sure that you're paperless. So if you're getting stacks of papers from your clients and coding stuff on paper, obviously it's not going to work if you want to offshore. So get some kind of document management system, scan all that stuff in, get your team into a groove of scanning. Even better yet, give gift scanners to your clients so that they could scan it for you. Less work for you to do. And you'll get the work faster. If you're getting a package a week that some doctors still want to do.
Yeah.
And then once you're paperless and you have everything documented, you can move forward with your trial, and then you can just do this. It could happen. We just signed a client in 2 days, got everything going, just got a few data entry people and loving it.
Okay. So can you give me an example? Can you give me an example of how you brought on one of your more successful clients that were really struggling, and then what they were able to see, the benefits that they were able to see, and what the process was for bringing them on and working with you?
Okay. Well, I just met with one today actually, and it's pretty cool. We're talking at a conference, and she's kind of thinking about it, and then she came home from the conference, called me and said, let's do this. And so we did. And in about 2 to 3 months, she now has about 10 people. Because every one of her account managers, and she's got more of the pod style set up, everyone said, when do I get a 4D person? And when do I get a 4D person? And so she did her data entry, and then she worked to AR, and now she has a few coding people. So it just kept growing just because they were just so excited about what it was doing for their organization. She just told me today that one of her leads told her that 40 are her best employees, and she has about 40 employees under her, but she's like, 4D they're my best ones. So that was nice to hear. But yeah, that would be one of our success stories.
Okay. I love it. Okay. And so here make sure that you click on the button here so you can grab a time with her.
Okay. And I want to let everybody know that we also have our mastermind groups. So we have groups of entrepreneurs that get together once a month to talk about whatever challenges they're having. We talk about different topics every month. So we could talk about anything from marketing to increasing profitability, streamlining operations, contract legal issues, HR issues. So we cover a range of different topics, and groups are divided by company size. So we have companies with 1 to 4 employees, 5 to 14, 15 to 34, 35 to 60, and 61 to 120, and then 120 plus. So wherever you are and whatever number of employees you have, please feel free to reach out. If you'd like to join this group, we'd be happy to have you be a part of it.
Great. That sounds super valuable. Now is that how does that work for people that are in different locations?
So we do a GoToMeeting. So we have people from all across the country join us, which is actually pretty cool. And we kind of do an intro on our first call just so that we all get comfortable with one another. And then we kind of get into it, develop a rapport with one another and a circle of trust.
That sounds great. I think everybody should definitely get involved in that. And there's no cost to that?
Totally free.
Love it. Love it. Okay, perfect. Well, good. Well, thanks, Hani.
Pleasure. Thanks, James. Really great job on this. I really appreciate all your input and feedback. It's really been wonderful. Thanks so much.
Excellent.